Well, hello. I am 24 Eyes, your host, and today I'm not in my apartment. I'm actually on the road doing a run, and I was still able to work out this episode. So I got an amazing guest tonight. He does some inking, he does some gaming. He's known as the Scotsman. I'm very excited to have Scotsman TV. How are you, sir?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Like I said, I'm on the road doing the road thing. So this is a road show. So this is like a new version, mobile. I had to learn how to use StreamYards. Oh, and then I share this account with my friends. So I had to go through like 20 different verifications to be able to open up StreamYards on this phone, this device.
Right.
Uh,
I know
but
that
how was your
struggle.
day,
I've had to
sir?
do that.
Have you? Oh my god,
Yeah.
it's terrible. It's terrible. You would think that they would make these things operate better on like tablets and phones, but they it's almost inoperable. But
Yeah. It,
Simper Gumby, Simper Gumby, always be flexible, always be ready to move. Sir, you're part of Inkslayer Studios
Inkslayer Entertainment. Yeah. Yeah. We're a
Entertainment.
digital
Sorry.
studio of a couple of guys that throwing our talents together, and hopefully we can divide and conquer to get our comics out quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah, that's actually something interesting because like a studio mentality hasn't probably been around for a long time. I think I don't know of any necessarily super famous indie like building up studios, but I think the way things are going in comics now, it is kind of a neat idea to band together and with digital media be able to pass things around much easier and not be in the same spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Inkslayer has we've got a couple of colorists. We got an inker. We got all of us know how to draw. We got Simon, who's incredibly fast at drawing. We got a little bit of everything. I'm a graphic designer, so lettering is I know how to letter. Typesetting is something that's very important to me as an advertising graphic designer. So we can basically do the whole process, and each one of us write a little bit. I have a part of my degree is in creative writing, so
Okay.
we've all got a little bit of the process. So we're banding together to try to make the best comics we can make.
Like what is that? Voltron, each piece symbol.
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
so, I dig it though. I love your streams because you do. People don't know you do a lot of inking streams, and I like the way you kind of break it down and talk to the audience, and also like your setup, the way people can see you and see your screen at the same time, see what you're doing.
Yeah, I've been streaming for a really long time. I started out on Twitch back in like 2011, 2012, something like that. And over time, I've kind of watched so many streams and tried to understand what do I like to see whenever I'm watching a stream. What don't I like to see? And more information is better than less. So I stream World of Warcraft as well, and I have an overhead camera that faces my gaming keyboard. So every now and then I'll turn that on, and you can see the finger jujitsu I have to go through to play that game. But to your point, when I do the inking streams, I'm doing it on an iPad, and I want people to see my hand moving across the screen, see what kind of strokes I'm doing, how I'm holding my pen, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty dimensional. People should really take the time if they have any interest in inking because you break down different processes. You talk about different things, and you said everything from soup to nuts, from the actual physical to good verbal. I think breakdown of a lot of things of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
And then you
Appreciate
also
that.
just you pick really cool pieces of ink too. So like, I mean, I've seen you grab a couple of things off of Twitter or different places and just go to town on it and do some really cool stuff.
I like a challenge, and picking stuff off of Twitter, 72 DPI, highly artifacted JPEGs, things with very little detail. really gets my inker brain activated. I really have to think my way through these pieces a lot of times because I'm up-resing them to 600 DPI. So they're starting out as a low resolution, unusable image, essentially going up to something that I could actually color and print out, the size of a poster if I wanted to.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's like a lot more work than I think I would necessarily want to do. I mean, there is like a lot of stuff that gets thrown out there just to ink, but I like it though. I like it's like sharpening the tool, sharpening the blade, steel against steel.
Always keep your toolbox open and something on the anvil. That's the way I look at it.
Do you think that you learn something like pretty relatively often, like with what you're doing, or do you feel like you just come across a nugget at this point here and there that's just like, oh wow, it changes up everything?
As far as inking is concerned, I've been an inker since the 90s, so I've got that skill kind of built out in my head. I can look at a penciled page and know pretty much every line I'm going to lay down. I mean, some of them are more challenging. I got to figure out because as an inker, I'm trying to convert the language, the shape language and shade language of pencil to the language of ink, and which is slightly different. So a penciler can turn his pencil on its side and lightly wiggle it back and forth on the paper and leave a gradient. Inkers cannot.
Yeah.
We have to convert that shade language into values with black lines. It's very binary. It's on or off, unless you use an ink wash. But particularly if you're talking comics, you don't really use ink washes too often. You're using straight black and white lines, and so you have to interpret what the pullouts are coming out of black shapes. Those pullouts being a gradient from black to light. So how tightly they are comprised together, how wide they are at the base, how sharp they are at the tip. All of those things convey value, and you build those values up by overlapping those different types of ink lines.
Yeah, that's pretty nifty. I'm not like an artist like that, so I don't necessarily know the language to translate it, but people need to see what you're talking about because it is interesting to watch, and like it's first like sometimes I've watched him do some stuff and I was like, I don't know what he's doing here, and then you zoom out and do a little bit more in another spot, and then it all like comes together and makes sense. How long did it take you to like be confident as an inker? I mean, you've been doing this since the 90s, but like, at what point did you stop looking at a page maybe and going, oh shit, or having a moment where you're like halfway through a page and then like, well, I don't know what to do now. Something happened here.
Well, I would say there's a stark contrast in I guess you could say the amount of care and the amount of time taken between traditional and digital. And since I'm working digitally, I don't need to worry about putting the wrong ink line down. I don't need to worry about did I hit that line just right, because I can just undo. Where if I'm doing it traditionally, I lay something down wrong, I'm getting the white paint or I'm getting the white out. So the stakes are higher. So there's always a tiny bit of anxiety that I feel when I ink traditionally. Even today, you dip that pen, you dip the pen in the inkwell, you blot, and then you go to lay your line down, and you're hoping that all of the time you spent practicing with that tool and the ink is going to cooperate with your hand. Doesn't always. So I would say that there's a formula to getting the inks to come out just right, to making sure that you're, one, making the piece better, and two, properly interpreting the intent of the artist who drew it, and you're trying to bring out what they drew and put a slight bit of style of your own on top of it, but always making the work better, not just changing it, making it better. So.
Okay. Uh, so you've been doing it for a minute. There's like levels. I've heard that there's like certain pencil artists that like will be very very loose with their drawings, and then there's other guys that are super tight. How long did it take you to like get comfortable with like the loose guys? Like, and how loose was the loosest guy you had to draw for?
Well, it probably took me a good couple years to settle down and understand what to do. I mean, partially it's you know, when you look at the pencil line, you see a bunch of scribble and you go, what did they mean by that? And so over time, you realize that you interpret shapes, you interpret lighting, you start to look at it from a perspective that, you know, trying to identify what's closer to you, what's further. So you apply line weight, where the light sources are at. You know, you study the pencils first and understand where the light's coming from. That'll tell you what kind of strokes you want to use. And plus, you know, depending on what you've developed as a style, what you're most comfortable with. Are you really good at pulling out? Are you really good at pulling in? Are you really good at doing bloops and, you know, long sweeping curves? Or, you know, are you better at just you know, carving up shapes and, you know, doing little stylistic flourishes on the edges of them? Those are all things that you decide along the way as you build up your style. But I mean, the loosest pencils I ever worked on was there was a book that Gil Kane drew, and I was an apprentice for another inker, and he got these pages in, and they were literally just layouts. The figures were kind of loosely scribbled on there. I mean, they were there, but when I say scribbled, they were scribbled. And so, you know, it was a little bit of a sci-fi story, so there was some tech. So I was in charge of doing all the buildings and machinery and anything that required a template or a straight edge or a French curve or things like that, just so that the other inker could, you know, he could keep going as fast as possible. He didn't have to pick up any kind of a, you know, straight edge or guide. So that's how we got through it really quickly. But Gil Kane was probably the loosest. Tony Daniel, his pencils are kind of in between, tend to be on the loose side. You know, I got to work on the 10th by Tony Daniel. That was back in the 90s. And you know, his pencils are very, very loose at times, and you know, there are times when he gets a little structured, but for the most part, very loose. The tightest pencils I ever worked on, it's probably a close tie between Ed McGuinness and Mike McCone. Ed McGuinness, his pencils, I mean, I got some right here actually. This is a laser copy of a Fighting American page. You can see how tight his pencils are. They're very, very, very structured, very, very tight, very technical. Whereas Mike McCone's, they're similar, but the edges are thinner. They're a little bit more fine artsy. Whereas, you know, Ed McGuinness's are a little more cartoony.
Do you think that's a personality thing, like a control thing, like the artist wants his work to be conveyed in a more like a specific way, as opposed to like someone who's a little bit looser and kind of leaves more interpretation?
I think it's probably a balance of a couple things. I think it's probably a balance of imposter syndrome. You know, that principle that artists feel like you're going to get found out, that you're not as good as you are, so you go a little further than maybe you should, or than you need to. So artists that are a little bit looser with their pencils, maybe are a little bit more confident in their completion. Like are my sketches tight enough to be inked? And there might be some style there as well, or it could be as much as, you know, a penciler's just not happy unless they drew it really tight, you know. So
yeah,
could be a couple things.
Did you ever consider doing like tattoo work or anything? Because I mean, it's kind of pretty and similar when it comes to the black and doing the lines, and you know, there are people that do shading, but I typically don't like super shaded tattoos because skin just makes it go. You know what I mean? Like you bleed out that fade eventually, and so
Right.
I really like the tight black lines, and you know, keeping it like you said, kind of like the stylized lines and stuff that indicate, you know, whether it's a light or a shadow or whatever it is. That I prefer that. Have you thought about dipping your toe, or have you ever dipped your toe in that?
I've never done tattoo work, but I can tell you that I had some friends right at the end of high school, going into college, who accosted me hard to get into tattoos. They were adamant that they were doing that, and you know, I was always too fearful. I mean, the canvas you're working on is someone's skin, and that always intimidated the hell out of me. So maybe today I could possibly do it, but I don't know. That intimidates me. I mean, I've got some ink. You know, I got a lot of tribal designs on my arms and stuff, but you know, I don't know if I could ever do that to somebody else. Even though I work with ink, you know, all the time. So
Yeah, I do wonder what it is, because it does seem like certain tattoo artists feels. But I mean, I think tattooing is kind of an interesting art all on its own, because it's one of the like least permanent things that you're gonna have. I mean, unless you get somebody like when they're 20, they take excellent care of their skin, and then like I don't know, have themselves skinned and have their skin preserved. Like your artwork is finite, and it's like the how good like the best version of it is super finite, because you know you age, sunlight, whatever happens to you, get scratched, cut, marks.
yeah.
I think that's an interesting thing how that is. But you know, other question. But the other thing is that comic books is kind of the same thing, because how many books or how many things are still around from like 200 years ago or 300 years ago, 400? You know, how many like objects do we have that we can't even figure out what they do in that time frame or whatever? So I mean, I guess it's all kind of temporary, but I don't know. I feel like that tattooing is like a really interesting thing. Just be like, man, I did all this work, spent all these hours, and it is gonna disappear. Like at least whether your stuff can be like put into books, it can be put into other books, it can be translated to digital, and now I mean, I think digital probably lasts forever. So there's like an EMP.
I mean, digital works. I mean, they exist as long as they're digitally stored. You know, so as long as the last copy of something digitally doesn't get destroyed or degaussed, it'll be around forever, essentially, in some way. You know, I think that when you look at like old comic book pages, they're on Bristol. Paper tends to yellow over years, so
Yeah.
a lot of those original works, they you know, they yellow, they fade. India ink, it's pretty permanent, but it's really not the ink's issue. It's more of the substrate, more of the paper surface itself that will break down over time, because it's literally fibers. So preservation is something that's very difficult when it comes to paper works. And skin, like you said, skin gets old, skin stretches, people get cuts, people get scars. So there's no real good way to preserve a lot of this art unless you know, put it in a hermetically sealed situation and on the wall in a museum. So to quote Indiana Jones, it belongs in a museum.
Oh, that's my question. How many? Oh man, what books? Oh man, I wonder what books will make it into a museum someday. Like, well, I'm sure there's already books in there, but I'm just wondering, like, out of everything, I wonder if any indie books will ever make it in there. Do I just have like, and these were when comics were still alive? I'm just because I always wonder, like, things change, you know, and like personality changes. But even with society changing, I don't know. There's something about comic books that I hold dear, and maybe it's just because I'm old and sentimental, and I'm trying to hold on to anything that as it getting destroyed by the mainstream, or just the best version of it before it was like hammered out, left
Yeah.
in the dust.
As far as books are concerned, what would make it into a museum? I mean, I would imagine, Action Comics Superman #1, that that should. Detective Comics Batman #1, that probably should. The X-Men, all the marquee main characters of that started kind of like maybe Silver Age comics, those characters. Maybe some first appearances, the Amazing Spider-Man, that kind of stuff. Those things, you'd have to wrestle them away from the private collectors who own them, if you could figure out who has them. I mean, not everyone is known, but there's only a certain amount of each one of those books in circulation. So at some point, there's not going to be any left to put into the museum unless you can pay a handsome price to get it from that collector. So I don't know. I think those ones would warrant it, though.
I wonder if anybody can fake it, because there was a document guy, right, that used to sell things to the Mormon church, but he would make up all the documents. But he went out of his way, like stole paper from like really old books and took ink and like washed out whatever was on the page before and put it. Went through a whole crazy, insane process of creating fake documents. I wonder
Nice.
how plausible that would be to do. Because like you made me think of that because you said like not everybody's known that has these objects or whatever. And I probably wouldn't want to be known either. But one of the craziest things I heard recently, as far as big art auction items going, is wine collections. There was a wine collector, salesman guy who was actually just hinting the bottles and like selling people 300-year-old glass bottles full of water for like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
I can only imagine what would happen to that person when the people find out. I mean, that'd be a serious beatdown right there.
With a comic book, would you find out necessarily? I mean, because you might have it hermetically sealed. You might have it all locked up. Like if the outside looks just right, what if the inside was blank and there was just like a "got you" or something like literally like the words "got you" printed in the center of it?
Well, I think honestly though, when you get to that level of collecting, I mean that's big boy collecting. When you get to that level, people don't buy works like that unless they get them appraised. They take them. They have an intermediary analyze the work, analyze the book. They look at it. They make sure that it's worth what they say it's worth and that it's authentic. Just look at like Pawn Stars or whatever. They don't buy anything unless they have a guy come down and look at it. Like, hey, this World War II, commander's sword. I got a guy. Mind hanging out for a second? Maybe make a call here. And the guy's like, oh yeah, this is authentic. Because this is the company that made this thing. The workman's stamp is right here. This thing's worth about $47,000 in the condition it's in, and they were asking for like $9. And the person's like, ooh, and then you always see his face and go like, I'll give you 18 for it. And they're like,
oh yeah,
the
look on his
40.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I gotta flip it. I gotta do the thing, and I had to pay this guy to come out. Come on, kill me. 18 grand. Come on, anyone. What surprises me is how much people are willing to give up. Like, unless I was in real pinch, dude, I would just go through the trouble of auctioning it myself. I think if I come across something that's above $5,000, like, probably not gonna hawk it for a real low value. But I mean, people are wild.
I mean, finding buyers for things is really hard, especially eclectic items like collectibles. You know what I mean? It seems like it might be easy, but I mean, let's say you've got X-Men #1. I mean, where do you advertise that you have it and that you want to sell it? Like, you got to build up at least a following of people that know you are a collector and you have high dollar items. Or maybe you take it to some kind of auction house and, you know, you join the auction and you have an auctioneer do it. You know what I mean? I don't know the process. I've never sold something that high dollar before. You don't put it into the recycler. You don't put it in the penny saver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, that's something that's worth $100,000. A book, a floppy book in a slab. You know, the lot of variables that you got to work out. But I don't know. I don't envy anybody who's trying to sell, you know, a collectible. That seems way too stressful for me.
Imagine this, like, you know, you said, like, at least, you know, you do inking. You know, worst case scenario, you said white paint, right? Or patrol, whatever. You go back and take it, you gotta do it. But, like, could you imagine being an appraiser for one of, like you said, like Superman #1, and then just, like, when you were flipping the page, you ripped it or something? You know what I mean? Oh, goodness. Because I've seen how careful they are with everything, but just, I mean, what if it just broke anyway, you know? How devastating is that?
Well, from what I understand, whenever they have a thing that's going to be appraised, there are contracts that are signed, there are understandings that are reached that, you know, anytime we touch it, we're gonna take the utmost care to make sure nothing happens to it. We're gonna white glove it. We're gonna be in a clean room or whatever the environment needs to be to ensure that nothing happens to that work. But to your point, shit happens, you know. So, it's way too. I mean, it gives me the chills just thinking about touching something that could literally just shred in my hands.
Just turn to dust. Just oh god.
Yeah.
And just hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions.
Yeah, like some of those baseball cards that are from like the, you know, late 1800s and early 1900s, turn of the century, you know. Like I believe when I was in my teens, there was a kid who found a Honus Wagner baseball card in the mud somewhere and like cleaned it off and like took it to a dealer, and it's worth like, you know, $800,000 or some ridiculous number. And he just found it in the dirt. It's crazy. Even in the States, it was worth that much.
Oh, wow. See, like, this is why I see all states.
You got a little bit of robot action going on. Stand by, fam. Sounds like you're playing an Atari game. Oh, I think you're back.
We're back.
You're back.
Thank you for holding down the forts here.
No problem.
It is, it's always a challenge. It's always a challenge when you're a working person and you want to live stream on a regular basis. It seems like life just wants to kick you in your dick in every like which way to make it like impossible. Oh, man.
Definitely.
I was thinking, could you imagine, like, somebody earlier was saying, like, I was watching another stream, they're saying, like, what got them into comic books, or, like, some of the first comic books they read, and somebody mentioned one of those cartoon Bibles, and I was sitting there thinking, I was like, I don't know if I'd want to do a project like that. That's so many pages. Like, how long, like, would that take to ink a Bible?
I mean, depends on how the panel flow was, how expressive they went with the sequentials. I mean, how in depth the stories are. It'd probably take you a couple years, though.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I was like, it didn't occur to me tonight to like thinking like, man, like I saw that Bible on TV forever. It never occurred to me that it probably took a ridiculous amount of time to like put that together. Oh, man. Sorry.
Well, I mean, think about it,
and like
I was gonna say, think about turn of the century, or not turn of the century, like pre like 1600s, right? Monks used to, before Gutenberg, monks used to hand illiterate and hand transcribe books. All books were handwritten before Gutenberg. So if you can imagine, it's a similar thing to transcribe those stories into sequentials and hand draw and ink them. It used to take them a generation to do those books, So that's one of the reasons why reading and learning how to read was really a high-class, very wealthy person's game. That's one of the reasons why Gutenberg, we think of like the internet was a huge boom and a huge leap forward for society. It was big, but the advance from poverty to through prosperity, through just the advent of the printing press, it took people who were locked into generational poverty because they couldn't read. It broke that mold completely, because now masterworks and literature and learning books could be mass produced with relative, I wouldn't say ease. Once the typesetting was done, you could rapidly reproduce a book, many copies in not just one fraction of the time it would take for a monk to transcribe it. So.
Oh man. God, that's enough. I hate editing. Could you imagine being a typesetter back in the day, like with like version 1? You know what I mean? Like where they still had rough, like where the letters probably don't even fit in there nicely. Like there's probably like issues with things. Oh.
Well, I mean that didn't go away that long ago. I mean, there was. You ever heard of a linotype before? You know what that is?
I've heard of the word. I don't know exactly what the machine is.
Okay, so there used to be a machine called the Helix linotype machine, and what it was a machine that would produce the blocks, the actual lead blocks that had letters, embossed letters on them, right? Or debossed or whatever. And they would put lead bars into the top of this thing and would melt them into the letter forms, and they would get these blocks, and they would set them out in rows and literally set the type. That's why the process is called typesetting, because you would set the actual little lead blocks in a line, and then you would put lead bars between them, between the sentences, like after a new line started. That's why that part is called leading, right? How much lead are you putting between each line of type? The kern is the actual space, the shims that they put in between the letters to spread them out further or closer. That's why those are kerns, right? So, that's where we get all that typesetting language. Typesetting, because you actually set it. Kerning, because the kern is the little parts on the letter that makes them closer or further apart, and the lead bars, the leading. So those are just vestiges of the manual process of making a box of type that's going to have ink put on it, and then a paper stamped on top of it or rolled across it. So, sorry, I'm a graphic design nerd.
I mean,
so
that's pretty amazing. I love graphic design stuff. I don't do a very good job of it. You can tell by my thumbnails, but I like it. And I'm into punk rock stuff, so I also like loud, obnoxious colors sometimes mixing together with patterns and stuff.
Yeah, your 24 Eyes logo reminds me of like not whose eyeball, like a skateboard logo.
Like Santa Cruz.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, like the hand with the eyeball, or the hand with the mouth in it. That kind of graphic.
I was going for that kind of feel, like that art group, like punk aesthetic.
Like Nodis Coppus's board, he had pretty cool graphics on there back in the day.
Sure. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe it's very zen to be a typesetter. Maybe nobody fucks with you. You know what I mean? Like, you might just be in that room. You might be one of the people that just prefers to be by yourself. You put on like a record player or something, like get in the mood, sit there, just going at it.
I can imagine that. I mean, think of it this way too. Yes, I imagine that people are very introverted who set type that way. But imagine, how newspapers, the first to get the print, get the scoop, get the paper out, is the paper that gets everybody to buy the copies, right? Imagine having to set the type for that under a tight deadline, and the press has got to go. It's 3 a.m. and you're setting the last bit of type to get that issue out by 6 a.m. when it needs to get delivered, or 5 a.m. Insanity, man. I don't envy that.
Well, I mean, yeah, you have that part. Well, then what else? I mean, like, there's the other part of just like, back in the day, there had to be certain writers that typesetters had to hate. There had to be guys that just used words. They were just like, why did you use that word? Like, how many, sitting there like pissed off. How many times are you going to use extravaganza, dude? How many times? Ugh.
Hey, Tony, you got any more X's over there? This dickhead's used extravaganza like 9 times. No? All right, we got to melt some more X's, boys.
Exactly. Oh, or you're like about to finish up for the night and you like drop, like, because just a small object, you just drop it, and like when something hits the floor and it's a tiny object, it just automatically disappears no matter how much your eye follows it.
Yeah, it always bounces in a random direction. And you're just like, shit. Hopefully, it didn't go under the table. Oof.
How many of those newspaper guys were like reaching under a machine, like super, like, come on, trying to get the last letter? That was the last Y. God damn it, no. Or how many people just skip it and they just be like, I'm putting an X in there and nobody's gonna probably notice anyways.
Like intentional typo. We didn't have any more Z's, man, so it's a Y.
Why? It just is. Shit.
This is a story about the zoos, and there's zebras at the zoo. You said the word zoo too many times, man.
Sorry. There's a limit. You got a limit here.
Yeah. Oh, Chris Fisk in the chat says, when the press was invented, we actually ditched 6 letters from the English alphabet. Nobody used letter eth, thorn, etc. Wow. Didn't know that.
Even know about it. Wow. Now I'm gonna go look up these 6 letters, and I want to know what their function was. Like, what sounds did they make?
Well, like AE, like the AE ligature between the A and the E, where they're married together. You don't ever see that really anymore. Except for Aetna, the insurance company. That's probably about it.
Maybe they. I don't know. Maybe there is a use. I mean, like, look, everybody's trying to change language right now, anyways, and make up and down, left and right, and nothing makes sense. So maybe we should inject some old shit in there. Really, we'll add some flavors to the mix.
I mean, I don't know. Imagine they just have like just big bins full of the letters. But see, there's another thing too, is like the font size, right? Like, I mean, how big each font or how big each character is, it changes for the need for, whatever publication it is. I mean, like 12 point font with 12 point lead is kind of like, your typical newspaper typeset flow. Anything bigger than that or smaller than that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they would catalog and keep all those different things. Now
I want them to make an old school version. I want all those letters back in the alphabet, and I want to play Wheel of Fortune, and I want to be able to buy the new vowels.
I'd like to buy the vowel ETH. Are you talking the cryptocurrency? No, ETH.
Oh god. I wonder how many people like use that joke to type say like how old that joke. Can I buy a vowel?
Well, eventually that's going to mean nothing to anyone, right? When Wheel of Fortune is gone. I mean, I make pop culture references from when I was a kid that literally are showstoppers. Like, people go, what?
What? I don't remember that.
It makes me laugh really hard, too, whenever I say something that nobody gets. I'm just like, oh my God, I just dated myself so hard, you know?
Yeah, but it's a secret language, and I like it when people do understand what I'm talking about. When they catch it, like, aha, I watched that too, sir. I watched that too.
Yeah,
I think that used to mean more. I think it used to mean more when there was less media. Now that there's a lot of media, I don't know if that means the same thing, but it used to mean a lot more. Although there's a lot of media.
We definitely have persistent screens on in our faces all the time with something playing. So I imagine that the memery, it becomes desensitizing over time, and only the real breakout stuff is, leaves a stain up there to where you remember it,
Yeah. Shame. Yeah, but there was forgotten stuff. I found a YouTube channel the other day. Well, I was watching heavy metal clips from the movie Heavy Metal, and then it took me on this adventure.
Wait a minute, hold on. We can't go any further. Which one? Fact 2 or the first one?
The first one.
Okay.
I was just searching general clips because somebody had mentioned some movie lines, and I wanted to hear it. Like, it made me think about the movie. I wanted to go back and watch those parts again. Mm-hmm. So imagine YouTube was doing that, and then it took me to this movie called Heavy Traffic, which is like this 70s animation movie that could not be made today by any means. Nobody would allow it to happen. But it's got all these New York backdrops, and it's like this old animation over the backdrops, and then it's got some live action mixed into it and stuff. And it was just wild. And that channel, I was like, man, this was insanely creative. No matter whether you think what you think of the material in it, it's still incredibly creative. And it was one of many things that was kind of hidden that I didn't know about. Well, that channel had this other show called TNT. Have you seen Mr. T's show called TNT?
Mr. T's show?
Yeah, Mr. T had a show where he teamed up with a white lady that was a lawyer, and it was called TNT.
For some reason, that sounds familiar, but I can't picture it at all. But it sounds familiar. TNT.
Dude, it's fucking great. I've been watching it.
Mr. T.
And then I started watching the old cartoons.
Well, remember when Mr. T traveled around with an Olympic gymnastics team? That cartoon?
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh, I had this playset. Do you remember those things where you know how you take a pencil and you're drawing something really thick, and then you take a piece of paper and you draw over it with pencil again, and transpose or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
And then they had those sticker things. They had those sticker things that did the same kind of thing. It was like a sticker, but it transposed and you ran over it or whatever, the pencil or whatever. I had a Mr. T set with that for that Olympic show, whatever that was. Where it was
Mr. T and Friends, I think.
Yeah, it was like a game board, right? Like you would get for Monopoly or whatever. And it had these stickers that I don't know what ultimately it was for at the end, because you could only do the stickers so many times. I guess it was just a playset that you got to customize, kind of.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Mr. T is great because he was he's like, I told my mama a long time ago, Mr. T would never curse. Cursing's bad. Cursing's for fools. I love my mama. He's so
have
great.
you heard the Mr. T mama rap? Have you seen that?
Yes. That is amazing.
Oh. It is the greatest thing in the world. I love Mr. T. I think Mr. T is the shit.
And he used to be a roughneck bouncer or something.
Yeah. I think he was in those the old, back before there was UFC, the Tough Man contest.
Bare knuckle brawling or something?
the bar fight, like the shit where it was like a boxing ring, but it was like, but it was called Tough Man. It was just like any dude could, put on a pair of gloves and get into the ring, and it would be a tournament, face off against different people. I don't even think there was weight classes originally.
Yeah. Dude, I can only imagine Mr. T doing that. I never saw anything about that, but that would be amazing to watch him. He was like the first Kimbo Slice.
Dude, the world used to be a completely different place. Like, if you really think, like, people are so like helicoptery on their kids and like about their personal life, like everything. Like, people are so much more. We used to be pretty fast and loose as a society. Like, you go back to the '70s and you like see what people used to do, how unlocked their stuff was. Like, I mean, how Wild West it was still. Like, there's still guns, but like there's still a purpose, like to carry a gun or a knife.
You had a gun
rack. Let's say in 2021, you're pretty limited.
I mean, pickup trucks had a gun rack behind them with a shotgun and a rifle all the time. Just chilling. Like, no big deal.
Well, people used to go to the bar with guns on them. I kind of like, I was sitting there thinking about it, I was like, man, we really got kind of like puritanical, because back in the Wild West, dudes used to just have that 6-shooter or that rifle on them, just sit in the bar getting weight, just hammered.
Yeah. I mean, every now and then someone got shot, but, that was the time. You don't look people in the face.
So much freedom. You know what else I miss about the 70s and 80s, though? The Karate Guy. The fake martial art dude. There used to be so many great fake martial artists out there. And, like, they had great videos. Now it's too easy to figure people out. There's stuff online. It's not as much fun when there's not a fake karate guy around.
There's entire YouTube channels dedicated to fake martial arts and cataloging, this fake, super secret technique having fat dude who's gonna teach you this mystical death touch who just gets his ass whooped by some average kickboxer. It's amazing.
Dude, I feel bad when they test out things like they put like the 80-year-old dude, like the 80-year-old like kung fu guy that's been doing like whatever watered down version of kung fu against like the guy that's like an actual cage fighter and that's been training like now at this point 3 or 4 different styles and applying them, like putting application to them for like 20 years.
Yeah. Chris Fisk says there's a guy in China going around beating up kung fu, quote, masters and proving how it's all BS. The CCP has made his life a living hell. I think I've seen that. The guy's like an MMA fighter. He's kind of chubby. He's not like super fit, but like he looks like he can kick ass because he's pretty big. But like I watched a video of him fighting a Wing Chun master the other day and just whooped this guy's ass. Just beat him senseless almost. Like the referee had to step in and like protect the Wing Chun guy like 5 different times, and then they called it. He just throwing him around like it was nothing.
Well, there's not. I think that those martial arts might still have a lot of application if they were trained in a way to use the application, but like, things like Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu are just packed. I mean, they're just practically applied in the course of going, through the training.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, I hold a black belt in Taekwondo that I got back in high school and directly after high school. I was all in on Taekwondo. And then I started like practicing grappling. I took Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for probably about 7 years. No, not 7. Off and on for about 5 years. And messed around for another couple years, just kind of casually with, friends at their home gyms or home, mats set up that they had. And I'll tell you what, man, Taekwondo, great as long as you don't kick above the waist. Side kicks, back kicks, things that are waist and below. You kick somebody really hard in the shin or in the thigh, they probably don't want to fight very much after that. But if you toss somebody on their head with judo or jiu-jitsu, people definitely don't want to fight. But the thing is, you need a good mix of both of those things, striking and grappling, because if you're one-on-one, grappling is probably where you want to be. But if you're in a crowd, you do not want to go to the ground. Going to the ground gets you kicked in the head.
Yeah, no, that's how you
lose all your teeth from somebody's foot.
Yeah, or you can be like me and have that one wild hair on a crazy night when you have a few drinks and you think that maybe somebody's hitting that girlfriend a little too much and you take on 5 guys in one. You definitely want to be on your feet as long as possible before you get curled up and start getting that group stomp going down on you.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty happy with, we would do two days a week Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then Saturday class was judo. So we would work on our grappling on the ground, and then we would do throws and hand fighting and stand-up grappling on Saturdays. And that was great, because the difference between like striking and grappling, as you know, is when you strike, you gotta dial it back to about 40%. You don't want to hurt your buddy, because they're not gonna want to train with you anymore. Where in jiu-jitsu, as long as you slow down as you're doing an arm bar or a shoulder lock, or you don't do heel hooks or any knee bars, you do chokes. You know how fun it is to catch your friend in a deep collar choke, and their pride is too much to where they don't want to tap, and you can see them just slowly fading out, and then they finally tap as they're literally about ready to fucking go to sleep. That's a great feeling.
I have friends, dude. I was in the Marine Corps. I had friends that were so stubborn that you could choke them out 3 times in a row before they'd fucking tapping. They'd be out, like gasping even. Like they'd wake up with that gasp and then jump up. They'd be like, I wasn't out.
Bro,
like, okay, well, let me try it again.
I had to grab you by your ankles and lift your feet up to wake you back up. You were out.
Oh man, have you ever choked one of your friends out by accident? Well, not accident, but purposely accidentally. But it was like one of the scarier chokes. Man, sometimes people don't wake up fast enough. Like, you know what I mean? You're like, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on?
Yeah, I've been to a bunch of jiu-jitsu tournaments where guys get caught in a really nasty triangle, and then they don't tap, or the triangle is just so good that it just puts them to sleep in like a couple seconds, and maybe the ref didn't get the guy off quick enough. And what they'll do is they'll roll the person over onto their back. They'll grab their pant legs and lift their heels up, and so the blood will rush from their feet back into their head and wake them back up. So I don't know. I've seen people take a little too long to wake back up, and it is a little nerve-wracking. I'd rather not have anybody go out like that.
No, like I said, only when you have that, sometimes you got that guy with too much pride. But I like going into, first to 5 or something, like we can do 5. Or have you ever done it where it's like we play that game of basketball, I do a shot, you do a shot, so whoever catches the person first, let's say I catch you in like a key lock or something, now you got to catch me in that next.
Okay, so like horse, you're playing like horse.
Yeah, horse. There we go.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, I've never tried. That sounds like it would be a lot of fun. But I mean, that would telegraph what you have to protect, right? So, if someone catches you in an arm lock, you gotta like get the right arm in an arm lock to not get a letter. You would probably have to put a time limit on that. You know what I mean? Like a 3-minute rounds or something like that. Like, you got to catch me in a clock choke in 3 minutes.
I always wanted to, and one of the things I regret about my time in California is I never got to go train at, I just wanted to go for at least a couple classes
Torrance.
just to see the difference. But I want to go, at Eddie Bravo's gym.
Oh, 10th Planet.
Yeah, 10th Planet, and try out their system, because their system's like pretty cool. I like 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu guys. I like how Eddie Bravo does his like version of EBI thing. That is
Well,
pretty fucking cool combat.
you know, Eddie Bravo actually names his techniques. I mean, he names them like, you know, slang and shit. Okay, you're going into chill mode, then you're gonna swoop over to mission control, and then you know what I mean? Like, he's got all these technique names that are not even close to what, you know, they're named in jiu-jitsu, like actual jiu-jitsu. But, you know, to his credit, that helps the system propagate itself, because, you know, whenever, you know, when you're training with the Brazilians, okay, brother, you need to put your hips right here, push them down. Okay, grab his arm like that. No, not like that. You grab him, put your thumb in like that, right here, right here. Good. You know, like, it's, you know, you're learning from cues rather than set positions, where they're almost like Eddie Bravo teaches almost like kata style, like you would teach karate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a reason why those complex martial arts are taught in that manner. Like, the Japanese teach katas is to build muscle memory, and so that you will repeat the action almost robotically, but then once you master it, that's when you start playing jazz. First you're playing sheet music to learn the song, and then you start playing jazz once you master it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
to relate it to music.
Oh, so, dude, if I could go back in time, I would go back in time and make my little kid self like stay in martial arts when I was like little, and just stay in it the entire, and add to it, because like a 9-year-old, like, you can teach a 9-year-old like 21 hit combos, like their little brains will process all of that. But
right.
Like, as an adult, try throwing 4 punches in a row and seeing how that goes for you. Like, you know, that aren't just back and forth. Try doing a simple combination.
Yeah, like my go-to would be, you know, flick a left jab, cross with the right, and follow up with a roundhouse kick to the knee with the right leg. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Bam, 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 like all in one. I wouldn't be wanting to, like, you know, do any complex transitions or, you know, any crazy footwork. It would be jab set up, follow through with the right, and then hit them hard low so that they either fall or stumble backwards. Then maybe depending on how effective that combo was, maybe a turning back kick right into their gut, if I got them to back up enough. But beyond that, nah, I ain't even trying to fight. You know what I mean? Like, I don't ever want to fight. You like, as you get older, you realize, you're like, you know, like when you're younger, you know, everything's like a pissing contest. Everybody's got their ego flared up. Like, is that fucking guy looking at me? What are you looking at? You know, that kind of shit. You know, all the young guys just like puffed up all the time. It's like, bro, calm down. It's okay. It's fine. Who cares if he's looking at you? Because guess what? Your copay is going to cost you more if you break a bone than that little exchange is worth. And so, and if you tag that dude, let's say you get into an argument, you guys step outside, you do it old school, you go outside, he shoves you, you turn and you kick him really hard, like in the liver, he falls over, hits his head on a planter, now he's a vegetable. Your life's never the same. Yeah. Never the same. Yeah. Because someone looked at you wrong. So I've gotten a lot calmer, especially through jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu taught me one thing. Taekwondo made me want to fight, because I wanted to do all these cool flashy kicks. I was much thinner then. I could do the splits both ways. I was really limber. I skateboarded all the time, so I was in really good shape. Man, I wanted to do that stuff. Jiu-jitsu taught me, you don't know what anybody knows. The first time you get choked out by a girl who weighs like 50 pounds less than you, it's an eye-opener. Some skinny little computer nerd who's, you know, 19, named Gabe, who just got done playing Fortnite, who happens to be a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, catches you in a nasty triangle, and his lanky little nerd arms are so skinny that they're like a garrote. He catches you in a fucking triangle, puts you to sleep. Calms you way down.
I hate the really skinny guys, man. I hate the really skinny guys because
this little wrist bone right in your neck, dude. Like, motherfucker. like grind it right into your cheekbone. They're like trying to get you they're trying to apply a rear naked choke, and they get you right like that, and they're trying to pull your head back so they can cinch it in. You're like, God damn it, dude, your shoulders are bony.
That's completely legal in the Marine Corps, like to grind on.
Illegal
man, so
or
yeah,
legal?
people don't. No, it's completely legal. Like you completely, when you're grappling in the Marine Corps, it's no holds bar. It's fingers and buttholes if necessary.
Check the oil. Get them to move.
Oh, dude, a swift thumb can make a man jump real quick.
Yeah, you need an inch to get that arm in there. You gonna pop up. Yeah, but that's the thing too.
Women
I mean,
too.
jiu-jitsu
Women
is a
have
game
those
of
skinny arms too.
It's a game of inches. You know what I mean? Like it seems like jiu-jitsu is this big and flowing, dynamic martial art, but nah. If you catch somebody in a choke, if you're a millimeter off the carotid artery, they don't feel it. Your technique has to be just right, But when you do apply a collar choke properly, people go to sleep really quick. You cut the blood supply off to the brain, they're out. It doesn't take much.
You know what I like?
Carotid arteries are very shallow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. I mean, if you can apply a choke properly, if you can catch a good one on somebody, it can be as short as 3 seconds or something like that. You can cut out someone's blood supply and put them out. But,
yep.
Yeah.
About 3 seconds. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. A lot of people who don't grapple, when you say the word choke, people think right here. They think like you're cutting off their air. You're cutting off the blood supply that's bringing the air to their brain, not the air to their lungs. Because you can maintain a lot of time with no air, as long as you stay calm. If you can't breathe, I do Wim Hof method breathing. I can hold my breath for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, no problem. You catch me in a choke where you're cutting off my air supply, I'm good. I'm not gonna panic. You catch my carotid arteries, I'm tapping, because either that or I'm gonna go to sleep.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, yeah. Yeah, because sometimes people feel like it. Sometimes it looks like something deep or it's caught right, but if you just move, if you can move your neck at just the right time, move your chin just enough to give you enough of a tuck, you can sit there and kind of breathe it out a little bit, work around, maybe move your hips out. So yeah, sometimes you can roll out of some shit. I like arm bars though. People don't use enough arm bars. I think sometimes just some pain application, and because it's quick. I guess because people it's probably the first thing anyone learns to do is probably an arm bar or rear naked choke.
My go-to technique is like an offhanded arm bar where I'm using only one leg under the armpit and one across the face. I used to have a setup for that. And then the bow and arrow choke. Those are my two bread and butter moves. I go from deep half guard to transition to the side, and then I have a bow and arrow choke that I'm able to get a hold of your lapel and thread it. Once I'm able to do that, the bow and arrow choke is coming really quick.
Dude, you know how many times I got choked out fucking when I thought I was winning? I thought I was gonna win. I was like, I got this purple belt, so I'm winning, and then he just undid my belts and undid some other shit, and eventually chokes me out with my own gear.
Yep. Yeah, that is so fun to lock somebody down. Like you put your ear on their chest, right? You're in side control. You reach down and you grab their lapel and pull it out, and then you feed it to your off hand, and then cinch it up nice and tight, or wrap it over their arm and pin their arm backward, and they can't get up because you literally have your arm behind them and you're holding their lapel across their chicken winging their arm, and they're like, oh, I can't get up. You know what I mean? Then there's a whole other set of setups for arm locks and shit.
Well, that's why I like that stuff, though. It has that real practical application, because you can grab somebody's jacket. You can, oh, that's so much useful. And it's so useful for people who are smaller, different size. I don't have too many people I walk. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I don't have too many people I walk into that I'm definitely afraid I can't defend myself from. But I tell you what, those techniques have put me in some situations where I was grappling, and there was like some dude that was like 6 foot something and fucking 300 some pounds, and you get caught. I mean, like, there's a certain amount of mass that's just hard to fucking deal with. But if you really, really like pay attention to where you're at, you can maneuver around somebody. You can crawl around someone.
Yeah.
Work out something.
Well, that's what the most effective martial arts to have on the street definitely have at least an understanding of how to box. Number one, because if you don't have to go to the ground and someone throws a punch at you, you know how to slip it and maybe counter punch them. Great. The second thing, judo. Judo is the best martial art for the street, because I'll tell you what, when someone grabs you, if they're grabbing it, they're literally binding themselves to you. They've done half the work for you. I mean, literally, most of the judo technique itself is catching someone firmly enough to where you can upset their balance. And if they're holding on to you, you just create a fulcrum for them, and they go landing on their head. If you catch somebody and do the uchimata is one of the most devastating techniques. It's where you lift somebody's weight up onto your hip, and you kick up between their legs behind them to lift them up even higher and dump them over your shoulder, and they end up landing kind of between their shoulder blades with their head like hitting second, so they land kind of, it basically takes all of their body weight and drops it on themselves. That will ring your bell so fucking hard. If you're still awake after that happens, you're not going to have any air in you, and you're not going to want to fight. I've seen a lot of conflicts ended with a nice uchibata or even osotogari, like that one, to get somebody away from you so you can escape at least. Those two techniques alone, that's all you need. Really, that's all you need to protect yourself. If you can do those effectively,
you'd be surprised on how. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember what it's called, and I know this from more of my Marine Corps stuff. So the Marine Corps has like a mix. Their martial arts program mixes shit. But one of the things they taught us was like if you're like in a headlock. I didn't know how easy this was to do, but people's center point is like their waist area, and you can tip a motherfucker over, like, or even a really big person over pretty easily, just by grabbing like right by their pockets and lifting up. Like, you can.
Oop. You're roboting. I think you're back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're back. Yeah, you can get somebody by grabbing by the pockets, is what you said.
Yeah, like if you're standing right next to, like right beside them, right? Let's say like you're in a headlock or something, and they got you right to the side. You grab both hands, and kind of step behind them, and you grab with both those hands, and you just kind of pull up, dude. They'll fucking tip right over. The tip right on their fucking head. And you can do it quick.
There's a jiu-jitsu technique for that position too, where someone really big gets you in a headlock where you're side to side with them. You actually grab their belt with your backhand, and you grab one of their arms with the other hand, and you sweep your legs around them and basically sit down, and that pulls them over, and that creates a roll where you roll and you end up on top of them. You put your foot across their body as you're rolling, and you end up in a position where you have one of their arms, the one that had you around the throat, you have that one pinched between your own chin and your shoulder, and then you just basically pry their other arm off, and you got them in an arm lock. It's like that fast. It's one of my favorite techniques. Like, if someone gets me in a headlock, I don't care. They're going to be arm locked in like 10 seconds. And that's all weight. That's all weight and creating momentum just from sitting down and pulling them with you and rolling your body with them.
It's something I wanted to study, but I've heard is a lot of garbage. But I thought, like, back in the day, like the math behind it made sense. Is like Aikido. Some people say it's real trap, but I don't know. I haven't done enough of it or used any kind of application of it to, like, for me to personally judge if I think that there's like something funky about
3 years of Yoshinkan Aikido.
Okay.
So my martial arts background, I was really into like I wanted to learn Kung Fu when I was in my early teens. I was like, that's amazing, you know, all the different animal styles. Never did any of that. There was a teacher at my high school who taught Tai Chi, and I'm like, that looks like old people stuff. And he was like, no, it's actually a beautiful art, and you do this stuff. And I'm like, okay, that seems like bullshit. And right around that time, the UFC came out, and the original version of the UFC, where it was literally all these different styles pitted together in a multi-stage tournament in one night. You would fight 3 times. And I'm like, wow, all that stuff looks crazy. And then that's when I got into Taekwondo, because, you know, everybody was striking except for Hoist took everybody to the ground and beat the crap out of them, you know, choked them unconscious. And I at that time I thought, that's just so unsporting, dude. I you know, it didn't seem like fighting to me. And I was like, fuck that, you know, I don't want anything to do with jiu-jitsu. Yeah. At that time, you know what I mean? And around that time in high school, there, you know, I was skateboarding, and, you know, I was being sought after by the football coach and the wrestling coach because, you know, kind of stocky, you know. He's like, dude, you have a wrestler's body. You should come out to the wrestling team. I'm like, I don't really want to grapple. I don't really want to roll around the floor with a bunch of sweaty guys. Meanwhile, I should have, because that would have, you know, catapulted my fitness to the stratosphere, because wrestlers, man, incredible shape. But then, after a few years of Taekwondo and getting my black belt, I moved on to Yoshinkan Aikido. My wife's Japanese, and she was going to the specific Aikido school, and it was really interesting understanding how to control the body with the elbow and the wrist. You know, various techniques of how to turn the wrist over, how to manipulate the wrist, how to manipulate the elbow, different takedowns and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun. A lot of it is completely useless, but I'll tell you what, when I went to jiu-jitsu after that, I was able to hand fight better than most of the guys who've been doing jiu-jitsu for years, because I understood how to manipulate the wrist from Aikido. So I could break their grips really easily and apply my own grips from like guard. I was catching people in wrist locks from the guard, and they were like, what the fuck are you doing? Well, I'm like, this is Aikido. I'm just keeping you in my guard and like doing Aikido techniques on you, you know? So I was able to mesh the two together. I mean, really, Aikido, Judo, Jiu-Jitsu all come from Aikijitsu, which is the unarmed samurai combat. When a samurai would lose their weapon, they would have to learn, they would basically use Aikijitsu. So that's where that all came from. It looks like Mr. 24 Eyes has left the studio, and it is me alone. Hello, chat. Let's talk to chat. We were having a martial arts discussion. Let's see. We've got Chris Fisk. We said hello to Chris. Hex Allen. Hail, brother. A ninja with a pencil. Don't think I've ever met you before. Greetings. A Snake River Catfish Slayer. One of our mods here today. Thank you. Chuck. What's up, Chucky? It's my boy. And Jersey Girl. Hello. And since you weren't here at the beginning of the show, I'm ScotsmnTV. I'm an inker, an artist, comic book artist. And, Mr. 24 Eyes asked me to come on the show today to talk about pop culture, talk about comic books, whatever, kind of have a interesting discussion. So that's why I'm here. So he's currently driving. Apparently he had to go on a long trip to do a delivery. And we planned the show today based on a certain start time. And so we had to delay it. You see my trailer. Did I see your trailer? No, I didn't. Did you post it on Twitter? I imagine you did. You're pretty good about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I haven't seen it. Anyway, so we talked about typesetting. We talked about graphic design. We talked about collectibles. We talked about, things, collectibles being in museums, transition to a martial arts discussion, and then, kind of hanging out. So I see he's still showing comments. So that's interesting. So he must be in the back room, unable to rejoin the stream or something like that. So I'll just hold down the fort. So, my man's back.
All right, I'm back. Jesus. Thank you
Welcome
for holding
back.
down the show, sir.
That's what I do, man.
You are an excellent host. I do enjoy your stuff. Oh man, but it is getting close to your game time, is it not, sir?
Correct. Indeed.
It's been a really great stream. I do appreciate you coming on, and I hope to bring you on again with a less crazy stream where I'm getting kicked off of my own stream and not able to get back on because my camera won't log on and all kinds of whatnot.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm hoping to bring you back, and I'm hoping we'll have a couple of the other Inkslayers on, and maybe perhaps an Inkslayer panel in the future. Because I like all of you guys. They're all
that would be great.
Great people, and I think we have some things in common. I'd like to dig into some more stuff. But is there anything you'd like to plug, sir, before we call it a day?
Definitely. My YouTube channel, ScotsmnTV. 2 nights a week, I do an inking show, as you had mentioned earlier, called Black and Brew. I have a Wednesday night edition, which is the brew side. I drink 1 beer, and I pick an image off of Twitter, and then Saturday morning is Black and Brew coffee edition. You know, coffee, brew, beer, brew, coffee, whatever. So, inkers, we get bruised up and beat up as we're finishing these pages. So we're all black and blue, but because we're drinking coffee and beer, it's Black and Brew. But the goal with the show is for me to connect with other artists. I have a small platform. It's not big. It's growing. Little over 1,000 Twitter followers. My YouTube channel is growing. But one of the things in the indie comics, I hate to say space because it sounds SJW, but indie comics realm, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of negativity from time to time. It bubbles up, gets higher or lower, more or less. And artists, because a lot of artists are introverts, they don't really promote themselves very much. I'm not introverted in any way. I'm not shy in any way. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about me. I try to be the best person I can be. I try to be an asset to everyone around me. I try to promote people when I can. So if someone doesn't like me, that's on them. I can't do anything about it. So who you see right now is who I am 24 hours a day. I don't change. I don't have a persona. This is me. So I'm trying to connect with other artists, get them some promotion, use the skills that fell into my head from the universe, put them to good use, and do something positive. When I see something on Twitter, some pencil drawings that I like, I'll reach out to that artist, tag them in it, and I'll ink it on my show. And I've met a few artists, and they've been really appreciative of the promotion. And, hopefully keep the art of inking alive. Even though I'm not doing it traditionally, I'm doing it digitally. And, get more promotion for the indie comic scene. And promote a little bit of goodwill and connection between all the artists out there. So that's my main goal with that show.
Well, that's amazing, sir. You can check out all those links in our description. So if you want to get a part of this and have fun, and that's what this show's about having fun too. Because YouTube's full of drama channels, and everybody in the world already has an opinion about how terrible things are, and some of them say they're better than I do. So, let's work on the good. And with that, I think we'll have a good evening. No play out today because I'm on this.
Yeah.
Everybody,
absolutely.
Have a good one.